Black man denied service at bank, then he reveals he's the owner. It was 10 in the morning when Marcus Johnson, a 45-year-old black man, walked into the National American Bank branch in downtown Atlanta. He wore a simple t-shirt, faded jeans, and a worn pair of sneakers. The battered backpack on his shoulders and his observant gaze didn't draw attention, or rather they did, but only for silent judgments. What no one knew was that this humble-looking man was, in fact, the new majority owner of the bank, following a multi-million-dollar acquisition that had not yet been publicly announced. Marcus took a number and sat in the waiting area, carefully observing every detail of the environment. The cold air conditioning contrasted with the intense heat of the Georgia Capitol outside. Impatient faces and expressions of boredom dominated the employees' countenances. While waiting, Marcus noticed how the tellers treated each customer who approached, wide smiles for the well-dressed, impatient looks for the more humble ones. "Mrs. Thompson, number 38, please proceed to teller 3, announced the metallic voice of the calling system. An elderly lady, wearing a floral dress faded by time, rose with difficulty, leaning on a wooden cane. Marcus observed how the teller rolled her eyes when she saw the woman slowly approaching. "Ma'am, could you move a little faster? We have many people waiting," said the employee, a young woman with blonde hair pulled back in a tight bun, who according to her name tag was called Patricia. "I'm sorry, honey, but these legs aren't what they used to be," replied Mrs. Thompson with a shy smile. Marcus felt his blood boil but maintained a neutral expression. It wasn't time to intervene. He needed to see how far the disrespect went in this agency that now also belonged to him. Raised in the outskirts of Atlanta, the son of a washerwoman and a bus driver, Marcus knew well what it was like to be judged by appearance and skin color. He had sold popsicles at beaches, delivered newspapers at dawn, and studied by candlelight when there was no electricity in his neighborhood. He had earned a scholarship to study business administration, and years later, a job opportunity in Silicon Valley. There he prospered, built an empire, and was now returning to expand his business, starting with the acquisition of National American Bank. "Number 42, gentleman in the blue t-shirt, teller 5, called the system. It was Marcus's turn. He got up and walked to teller 5, where a young man with bored features didn't even look up when he approached. "Good morning. I'd like to check an account statement and then make a withdrawal," Marcus said politely. The teller, whose name tag read Brian, looked at him over his thin-rimmed glasses. "What's the account number?" he asked dryly. "Actually, I don't have an account at this specific branch. I need to open one," Marcus explained. Brian let out an audible sigh. "To open an account, you need to go to the accounts department. Take another number." "I understand, but first I'd like to speak with the manager, please." "The manager only sees people with appointments or premium clients," Brian replied, not hiding his disdain. "By your appearance, I doubt you fit the profile." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "And what would that profile be?" "Look, sir, I have many customers to serve. If you want, take a number for the accounts department or come back." "Another day with an appointment," concluded Brian, motioning for Marcus to leave the counter. "I'll wait for the manager if you don't mind," insisted Marcus, keeping calm. Brian rolled his eyes and picked up the phone. "Greg, there's a guy here insisting on talking to you. He doesn't look like the type of client that—" "Yes, I already explained, but he doesn't want to understand." "Okay." Hanging up the phone, Brian pointed to a waiting area. "The manager will see if he can spare a few minutes for you. Wait there." Marcus thanked him and headed to the indicated area. While waiting, he observed how the same manager quickly came out of his office to attend to a man in a suit who had just arrived, completely skipping the line. Smiles, pats on the back, invitation to enter the private office. The contrast was striking. After 40 minutes of waiting, Marcus was finally called. Greg Mitchell, the manager, a middle-aged man with gray hair at his temples and an impeccable suit, received him at the door of his office with an impatient expression. "Well then, Mr. Marcus Johnson." "Mr. Johnson, how can I help you quickly?" "I have a very full schedule today," he said, without inviting him into the office. "I'd like to open a business account and make an international transfer of substantial funds," Marcus explained. Greg examined him from head to toe, lingering. on the worn sneakers and battered backpack. A condescending smile appeared on his lips. "Mr. Johnson, business accounts require specific documentation, proof of revenue, and a series of requirements. As for the international transfer, we're talking about a complex procedure with strict Federal Reserve regulations. Perhaps you're looking for a more basic service?" "I'm aware of all the procedures and requirements," Marcus replied calmly. "My company has an annual revenue of approximately $300 million, and the international transfer would be around $50 million. Initially, Greg couldn't contain a laugh. "Mr. Johnson, with all due respect, I think you don't understand the magnitude of the figures you're mentioning. I suggest you start with something more modest, perhaps a payroll account or savings account." Marcus E. took a deep breath. "I understand the magnitude perfectly, Mr. Mitchell. In fact, I understand better than you imagine. Now, if we could speak in a more private environment." "Look, Mr. Johnson, I don't mean to be rude, but I have important clients to attend to. If you're really interested in our services, I suggest you come back another day with the proper documentation and, if I may say so, a personal presentation more appropriate for the banking environment." That was the last straw. Marcus looked the manager in the eyes. "Mr. Mitchell, I believe we got off on the wrong foot. Let me introduce myself properly. I'm Marcus Johnson, CEO of Johnson International Group, and since last week the majority shareholder of National American Bank. In other words, your new boss." The color drained from Greg's face. His smug smile instantly disappeared, giving way to an expression of pure shock. That's not possible. The acquisition hasn't yet been... How do you know?" "The acquisition will be officially announced tomorrow. But I thought it would be interesting to get to know my new branches from the inside, without filters or preparations. And I must say I'm disappointed with what I found here." At this moment, an elegant woman in a navy blue suit approached quickly, with a panicked expression on her face. "Mr. Johnson, my God, we didn't know you would come personally. I'm Helen Wilson, Regional Superintendent. I just received a call from the bank president about your visit. Please forgive me for not being here to receive you appropriately." The buzz began to spread throughout the branch. Employees whispered among themselves, some discreetly taking out their phones to search for information about Marcus Johnson. The news spread like wildfire. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us who are just starting out. Now continuing. "Don't worry, Ms. Wilson. Actually, I preferred it this way. I wanted to see how a regular customer, especially one who doesn't fit the premium profile, as I was informed, is treated at this institution." Helen shot a withering look at Greg, who seemed about to faint. "Mr. Johnson, please, let's go to my office. I can offer you coffee, water, whatever you prefer," said Helen, gesturing toward a side corridor. "Actually, Ms. Wilson, I think we should resolve this right here where everyone can hear," Marcus replied, slightly raising his voice. "After all, it was here, in front of all the customers, that I was treated with contempt." The entire branch was now silent. All eyes turned to this unusual scene. Since I entered this branch, I've observed how simpler customers are treated with disdain, while those who appear to have money receive red carpet treatment. I saw an elderly lady being rushed, humble people being directed to longer lines, while the important ones receive VIP treatment. Marcus turned to the waiting customers. "I apologize to all of you on behalf of the bank. This will change starting today." Helen was desperately trying to control the damage. "Mr. Johnson, I assure you this doesn't reflect the bank's policy. These are isolated cases that..." "They're not isolated, Ms. Wilson. I have reports from other branches, complaints on social media, negative reviews, and now I was able to verify it personally." Marcus opened his battered backpack and took out an ultra-thin laptop. "I have here customer satisfaction data from all branches in the country, and this one specifically is among the worst." Greg was pale, with a thin layer of sweat on his forehead. Brian, the teller who had initially attended Marcus, seemed to want to disappear into his chair. "Mr. Johnson," Helen intervened, "can we resolve this in a more discreet manner?" "The discrimination wasn't discreet, Ms. Wilson. The solution won't be either. Marcus turned again to the customers. Starting today, I will implement a new customer service program at this bank. Every employee will go through retraining on diversity and respect. We will install a real-time evaluation system. And, most importantly, any employee caught discriminating against customers will be immediately dismissed. A murmur of approval ran through the customers. Mrs. Thompson, the elderly lady Marcus had observed earlier, had tears in her eyes. "Mr. Johnson," said Helen, trying to regain control of the situation, "I assure you we will take all necessary measures. Perhaps we can discuss your plans in a formal meeting with the board." "We will certainly have that meeting, Ms. Wilson, but first I would like Mr. Mitchell and all the employees of this branch to hear my story." Marcus paused, making sure he had everyone's attention. "I grew up in the outskirts of this city. My mother was a washerwoman, my father a bus driver. I worked from the age of 10 to help at home. At 18, I got a scholarship to study business administration, working during the day and studying at night. I suffered discrimination in job interviews, was followed by security guards in stores, and yes, was mistreated in banks. Exactly, like today. The branch was in absolute silence. I got an opportunity to work in Silicon Valley, where I was recognized for my talent, not for the color of my skin or the clothes I wore. I built my company from scratch, expanding to 3 continents, and now I've returned to the US, not just to do business, but to change mindsets." Marcus looked directly at Greg. "Mr. Mitchell, you judged me by my appearance, not by my character or ability. This ends today, not just for me, but for all customers of this bank." Helen tried to intervene again. "Mr. Johnson, we will take immediate action against Mr. Mitchell and—" "It's not just about Mr. Mitchell," Marcus interrupted. "It's about an institutional culture that we need to change. And I'm not talking about firing people, but about re-educating them. Mr. Mitchell will have a choice: participate in the new re-education program I will implement, or seek opportunities at another institution." At this moment, a young female employee stepped forward. "Mr. Johnson, may I say something?" Marcus nodded. "My name is Lisa Santos. I work at the counter. For months I've been trying to alert about this type of treatment, but I've always been silenced. I have a dossier with reports from customers who have suffered discrimination." "This is absurd," exclaimed Greg. "Mrs. Santos, this constitutes a serious violation of the bank's code of conduct, sharing confidential information." "What constitutes a serious violation, Mr. Mitchell," Marcus interrupted, "is the systematic discrimination of customers. Ms. Santos is correct in documenting these cases, and I would like to see this dossier as soon as possible." Lisa smiled, relieved. "I have everything documented, sir, and also suggestions on how we can improve." "Excellent, Ms. Santos. You have just been promoted to coordinator of the new Equality and Respect Committee that we will implement in all branches." Lisa's eyes widened in surprise while Greg seemed about to have a collapse. "This is irregular. You can't promote someone like this without evaluation, without a formal process," he protested. "Mr. Mitchell, as the majority shareholder and new chairman of the board, I can assure you that I have the authority to implement the changes I deem necessary, and the first is to value employees who care about the dignified treatment of customers." Marcus turned to Helen. "Ms. Wilson, I would like you to organize a meeting with all regional managers for tomorrow. I will personally present the new customer service program that will be implemented in all branches." Helen nodded, trying to maintain her composure. "Certainly, Mr. Johnson. It will be arranged immediately." Marcus then addressed everyone present. "I apologize for the disruption caused today. Each customer who felt disrespected at this branch will receive a year of fee waivers as a small gesture of reparation. And I promise everyone National American Bank will become a reference in equal and respectful treatment." Spontaneous applause erupted in the branch. Mrs. Thompson approached Marcus with tears in her eyes. "My son, I've been a customer of this bank for 20 years and have never felt truly respected. Today, for the first time, I feel that this can change." Marcus smiled and took the elderly woman's wrinkled hands in his. "It will change, Mrs. Thompson, you have my word." The news spread quickly. Even before the official announcement of the acquisition, social media was already buzzing with the account of what had happened at the branch. Videos recorded by customers went viral. Marcus Johnson became, overnight, a symbol of resistance against prejudice in the American corporate world. The next day, the story was on the front page of major newspapers across the country. Black businessman disguised as regular customer exposes prejudice in bank he had just acquired. The repercussion was immediate. Other people began to share their own experiences of discrimination in banks, stores, and various companies. The meeting with the regional managers was tense. Many feared for their jobs. Others questioned Marcus's authority to implement such radical changes, but he was prepared. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus began in front of a room full of nervous executives, "I'm not here to conduct a witch hunt. I'm here because I believe we can transform this bank into the most humane and respectful financial institution in the country. And this is not just ethically correct, it's excellent business." Marcus presented data demonstrating how companies, with inclusive policies and humanized service, presented better financial results in the long term. He showed case studies of international banks that had implemented similar programs and seen their customer base grow significantly. The United States has more than 100 million people from middle and lower income backgrounds. They are hardworking, honest people who need banking services. When we treat them with contempt, we're not just being prejudiced, we're missing a gigantic business opportunity. Gradually, resistance gave way to curiosity. Executives who arrived defensively began to ask questions, suggest adaptations, show genuine interest. By the end of the meeting, Marcus had won over, if not all, at least the majority of those present. "The transformation begins today," he concluded. "Each branch will implement the pilot program for 3 months. We will evaluate the results and make necessary adjustments. But one thing is certain, we will not go back on the decision to treat all customers with dignity, regardless of appearance, color, or social status." Meanwhile, at the branch where it all began, Lisa had already assumed her new role as coordinator of the Equality and Respect Committee. Her first action was to organize a meeting with all employees. "We need to recognize that we all have unconscious biases," she explained. "The important thing is to be willing to identify and overcome them." Greg Mitchell, the manager who had mistreated Marcus, was present, although visibly uncomfortable. After much reflection and realizing that his job depended on it, he had decided to participate in the re-education program. "Mr. Mitchell," Lisa called, "I would like to hear from you. How can we improve our service to customers of all social classes?" Greg cleared his throat, nervous. "Well, I think we can start by not making judgments based on appearance. I recognize that I made this mistake and I'm willing to learn to do differently." It was a beginning, small, perhaps even forced, but a beginning. In the following weeks, the transformation was remarkable. Employees went through workshops on unconscious biases, humanized service, and inclusive communication. Customers who were previously ignored or mistreated reported significant changes in how they were received at the branch. Marcus made surprise visits regularly, sometimes again in disguise, to verify if the changes were really being implemented or were just for show. Most of the time he left satisfied. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us who are just starting out. Now continuing. 3 months after the initial incident, National American Bank officially launched its Humanized Service program, extending the successful practices from the pilot branch to all its branches across the country. The advertising campaign was revolutionary. Instead of showing well-dressed actors in luxurious environments, it featured real people from all social classes being served with the same respect and attention. The specialized press initially treated the initiative with skepticism. Social marketing or real change? The analysts questioned. But gradually results began to appear. Customer satisfaction increased. The number of new accounts skyrocketed. People who had never considered opening a bank account, out of fear of being mistreated, now felt invited to enter. But not everything was rosy. In some branches, resistance to change was strong. Older managers saw the new policies as fussy or politically correct. Employees accustomed to treating simple customers with disdain found it difficult to change ingrained behaviors. It was in this context that Marcus decided to implement the second phase of his plan, the reverse mentoring program. Young employees, especially those from humble backgrounds or belonging to minorities, became mentors to senior executives. The idea was to allow leaders to understand perspectives different from their own, broadening their worldview. Greg Mitchell, the manager who had mistreated Marcus, was paired with Ryan Harris, a 22-year-old black teller who lived in a low-income community on the outskirts of Atlanta. "Honestly, I don't know what I can learn from someone who barely graduated from college," Greg commented to colleagues before the first meeting. But the first day of mentoring surprised him. Ryan took him to see his neighborhood, showed him the small soccer school he voluntarily coordinated, introduced him to residents who had never set foot in a bank for fear of being humiliated. "You know, Mr. Mitchell, these people work just as hard as any executive. Some work even harder. My mother leaves home at 4 in the morning to clean offices downtown and only returns at 10 at night after her second job. She deserves the same respect as any company director." That day changed something in Greg. For the first time, he saw up close a reality that he had always ignored, despite living in the same city. He began to question his own prejudices, his ingrained attitudes. It wasn't an instantaneous transformation. Prejudices of a lifetime don't disappear overnight. But it was a beginning. Other mentoring partnerships also produced positive results. Executives who had never interacted with people from different social classes began to broaden their horizons. Some reported profound changes in their worldviews. Meanwhile, Lisa continued her work at the head of the Equality and Respect Committee. Under her leadership, the committee developed a new priority service system that wasn't based just on the customer's income, but also on specific needs: the elderly, pregnant women, people with small children, people with disabilities, regardless of their bank balance. "Treating everyone equally is not enough," Lisa explained in training meetings. "We need to understand that some people have specific needs and deserve special attention, not because of the money they have, but because of their particular circumstances." 6 months after the initial incident, results were already visible in the numbers. National American Bank had increased its customer base by 15%, especially among the low-income population. Customer satisfaction was at its highest level in a decade, and surprisingly to many traditional executives, profit was also growing. "We discovered something that should be obvious," Marcus commented in an interview with a business magazine. "When you treat people with respect, they trust you. When they trust, they bring their business, recommend to friends and family, establish long-term relationships. In the end, everyone wins." The story of Marcus and his innovative approach began to attract international attention. Banks from other countries sent representatives to learn about the Humanized Service Program. Universities invited Marcus to give lectures on inclusive leadership. He had become an unofficial ambassador for the transformation of the American corporate environment. Greg's re-education program was almost over when he requested a private meeting with Marcus. "Mr. Johnson, I would like to thank you, not just for not firing me, which would have been more than fair, but for giving me the opportunity to change." Marcus observed the man before him. The arrogant and prejudiced Greg was giving way to someone more reflective, more humble. "The merit is yours, Mr. Mitchell. Many in your position would have resisted change, looked for another job where they could maintain their old habits. You chose the harder path, facing your own prejudices." Greg nodded, thoughtful. "It wasn't easy, and I'm still learning. But I want you to know that I'm sincere when I say I see the world differently now. I believe you, and that's why I've made a decision." Marcus paused, observing Greg's reaction. "We're opening a new branch in the Railway District, a region that has never had access to complete banking services. I would like you to be the manager." Greg's eyes widened in surprise. "Me? But there are people much more qualified with more experience in communities." "Precisely because of that. You learned in practice the value of respect and inclusion. Who better to lead a branch that will be a symbol of our new approach?" The new Railway District branch was inaugurated with a celebration. Residents who had never been welcome in traditional banks now had a branch in their own neighborhood, with employees trained to serve them with dignity. Greg, once so distant from this reality, now greeted each customer by name, took a genuine interest in their lives, understood their needs. The transformation was so profound that older employees barely recognized him. "Mr. Mitchell has become a different person," a colleague commented to Lisa during a supervisory visit. "I never imagined that he, of all people, would become an advocate for inclusion." Lisa smiled. "People can change when they have the right opportunity and incentive. That's what Mr. Johnson taught us." 1 year after the incident that transformed National American Bank, Marcus organized a special event. He gathered employees from all branches across the country to celebrate the results achieved and launched the third phase of his plan, the financial education program for vulnerable communities. "It's not enough to open the bank's doors to everyone," he explained on stage in front of thousands of employees. "We need to give people the tools so they can use financial services to their advantage, build assets, achieve dreams." The program would consist of free financial education classes in public schools, community centers, and the bank's own branches. Employees would be encouraged to participate as volunteers, sharing their knowledge with needy communities. At the end of the event, Marcus had a special surprise. He invited Mrs. Thompson, the elderly lady who had witnessed the original incident, to the stage. Mrs. Thompson represents millions of Americans who, for decades, were treated as second-class customers in financial institutions. Today we want to honor her as a symbol of our transformation. The lady, emotional, received a commemorative plaque and was named honorary consultant to the Equality and Respect Committee. Her wisdom and life experience would be valued in creating new service policies. "I never thought I would live to see this day," she said at the microphone with a choked voice. "My husband, who left us 5 years ago, always said that one day things would change, that one day we would be treated with respect." He was right. "And I only regret that he isn't here to see this." There wasn't a dry eye in the auditorium. Even the toughest executives were moved by the simple but deeply touching speech from Mrs. Thompson. After the ceremony, Marcus was walking through the lobby when he was approached by a young woman of simple appearance. "Mr. Johnson, can I talk to you for a minute?" "Of course," he replied, smiling. "How can I help?" "My name is Tanya. I'm a business administration student, and I work as a teller in one of your branches to pay for college." She seemed nervous but determined. "I wanted to personally thank you for the changes you've implemented. I've always suffered prejudice for being a black woman from a humble background, but since you took over the bank, for the first time, I feel respected and valued in the workplace." Marcus felt a lump in his throat. "Thank you for sharing that, Tanya. People like you are the reason all of this is worth it." "Actually," continued the young woman, gaining courage, "I wrote a project on how we can further expand the inclusion program, especially for young people from low-income areas. I know you're very busy, but if you could take a look." Marcus took the folder she offered. "I'll read it carefully, and if it's good, we'll implement it." 3 days later, Tanya received a call from Marcus's office. Her project had been approved, and she would be the coordinator of the initiative, with a full scholarship to complete her studies. The story of Marcus Johnson and his revolution in banking service spread across the country, inspiring other companies to review their practices, some out of genuine conviction, others for fear of losing market share. But all began to pay more attention to how they treated customers from all social classes. National American Bank became a success case, studied in business administration colleges across the US and abroad. Marcus was frequently invited to share his experience at international conferences on diversity and inclusion in the corporate world. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us who are just starting out. Now continuing. 2 years after the initial incident, Marcus was in his office when he received an unexpected visit. Brian, the teller who had attended him on the first day, treating him with disdain. "Mr. Johnson, thank you for seeing me. I know you must be busy." Marcus indicated a chair. "Please sit down. How can I help you?" Brian seemed nervous but determined. "I came to personally apologize for the way I treated you that day. I know a lot of time has passed, but I never had the courage to speak directly to you." I appreciate your honesty, Brian. But the important thing isn't to apologize to me, but to understand why that type of behavior is harmful for the customers, for the bank, and for yourself. I understand that now, sir. In fact, that's why I requested a transfer to the Railway District branch. I wanted to learn in practice how to be a better, more humane employee. Marcus was surprised. He didn't know Brian had requested that specific transfer. And how has the experience been? Transformative, Brian replied, with a sincere gleam in his eyes. I've met incredible people, stories of overcoming that I never imagined. I've learned more in these 2 years than in my entire previous career. I'm happy to hear that. Mr. Mitchell mentions you frequently in his reports, always positively. Mr. Mitchell is a different man now. We've all changed. Brian hesitated, as if gathering courage to say something. Actually, Mr. Johnson, I also came to show you a project we developed at the branch, a specific microcredit program for small entrepreneurs in the community. He handed a folder to Marcus, who began to leaf through it with interest. This is excellent, Brian. Exactly the type of initiative we need to expand. Who developed this model? It was a collective effort. Me, Greg, and especially the residents themselves. We held discussion circles to understand their real needs before proposing any solution. Marcus closed the folder, impressed. You know, Brian, when I implemented all these changes, many doubted. They said it was utopian, that people wouldn't change. You and Greg are proof they were wrong. It wasn't easy, admitted Brian. I had to confront many prejudices I didn't even know I had, but each day is an opportunity to be better. After Brian left, Marcus sat thoughtful. The transformation he had witnessed went beyond customer satisfaction metrics or numbers of new accounts. It was a human transformation, profound, that spread like ripples in a pond. That night he called his mother, Mrs. Johnson, who still lived in the simple house where he grew up. Mom, remember when I was little and you went to that bank to open a savings account for me? Remember how the manager treated us? How could I forget, my son? He didn't even want to serve us, said the minimum to open the account was an amount I didn't have. We left there humiliated. Yes, Mom. Today I was thinking about that, about how a moment of humiliation can mark a person's life, but also about how we can transform these experiences into something positive. You've always been like that, Marcus, transforming pain into strength. That's why you've gotten where you are. Marcus smiled on the other end of the line. Mom, I'd like you to visit the bank headquarters tomorrow. I have a surprise. The next day, Mrs. Johnson, a 70-year-old lady who still maintained her proud posture despite her age, entered the sumptuous headquarters of National American Bank. She was nervous, out of place among so much luxury, but she was received like a queen. Employees smiled, greeted her by name, offered coffee. She was confused by so much attention. My son, why are they treating me like this? Do they know I'm your mother? No, Mom, they don't know. They're treating you this way because this is the bank's new policy, to treat all customers with the same respect, regardless of who they are. Marcus led her to a meeting room where several executives were waiting. She sat down, intimidated, while he took the floor. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mrs. Johnson, my mother. It was she who taught me about dignity and respect. It was she who, even when humiliated in banks like ours, kept her head high and taught me to do the same. Everything we've implemented here in recent years originated from the lessons I learned from her. The executives applauded, moved. Mrs. Johnson had tears in her eyes. Today, I want to announce our newest program, the Mrs. Johnson Fund for Family Financial Education, a $50 million investment to bring basic financial knowledge to low-income families across the country. Enthusiastic applause echoed in the room. Mrs. Johnson, speechless, just hugged her son tightly. That moment definitively consolidated the revolution initiated by Marcus. It wasn't just about corporate policies or service metrics. It was about recognizing the humanity in each person, honoring their stories, valuing their contributions. In the following weeks, the Mrs. Johnson Fund began operating in needy communities throughout the United States. Volunteers, many of them employees of the bank itself, taught basic concepts of family budgeting, savings, simple investments. Women who previously feared entering bank branches now learned to manage their finances with confidence. The international media covered the initiative. An American broadcaster produced a documentary titled Marcus Johnson's Silent Revolution: How One Man is Transforming the American Banking System. The film showed moving testimonials from people who, for the first time, felt respected in a previously hostile environment. In one of the most touching scenes of the documentary, Greg Mitchell, the former prejudiced manager, now transformed, conversed naturally with residents of the community where his branch was located. He knew each customer by name, knew their stories, their dreams, their difficulties. There was no longer any trace of the arrogant man who judged people by their clothes or appearance. "The biggest lesson I learned," Greg said to the camera, "is that each person has value regardless of their bank account. Each has a story, dreams, potential. My job is not just to manage money, but to help people achieve their life projects." The documentary also showed Lisa's work, now National Director of the Equality and Respect Program, implementing training in all branches across the country. Her dossier, which was previously kept secret for fear of retaliation, was now used as teaching material to teach employees about the impact of prejudice in service. "When I started documenting cases of discrimination, I did it in hiding, afraid of losing my job," Lisa explained. "Today this work is valued, recognized. It's proof of how things can change when there is genuine will." 3 years after the initial incident, National American Bank was not only the most profitable financial institution in the country, it was also the most admired, according to public opinion surveys. The case became a reference in business, schools, an example of how ethical and inclusive practices can transform companies and generate positive results. On a sunny Sunday morning, Marcus walked alone on an Atlanta park path, thoughtful. He reflected on the entire journey of the past few years, the challenges faced, the resistance overcome, the transformations witnessed. A street vendor approached, offering bottled water. Marcus accepted and, while paying, initiated a casual conversation. "Do you work around here every day?" "Yes, sir. Every day, rain or shine, I support my family with this." "And how are sales going?" "They've improved a lot since I got a microcredit to buy this new cart, you know. Before I carried everything on my back. Now I can bring more water, serve more customers." "Microcredit from which bank?" "From National American Bank. Do you know it?" "They opened a branch in my neighborhood. A manager, Mr. Gregg, helped me with all the paperwork. Really good people." Marcus smiled, moved. "Yes, I know it. Good to hear Mr. Gregg helped you." "Yeah. Before I was afraid to go into banks, you know. Thought they were only for rich people. But there they treat us well. They even call me by name when I arrive." That simple comment from a street vendor who had no idea who he was talking to was the greatest reward Marcus could receive. Confirmation that his vision had become reality. That the transformation wasn't just for show, but had penetrated the institution's culture. That afternoon, Marcus called Greg. "Mr. Mitchell, I received very positive feedback about your work today. A water vendor told me how you helped him with microcredit. James, he's a fighter. 3 kids, sick wife, and yet he never fails to pay his installments on time. It's a pleasure to be able to help him. The most impressive thing, Mr. Mitchell, is that he had no idea who I was. His comment was spontaneous, genuine. This shows that we've managed to create a culture that goes beyond appearances. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. But the merit is all yours. You believed in transformation when no one else did, including me." After hanging up, Marcus made an important decision. It was time to expand the model to other sectors. After all, discrimination didn't exist only in banks. It was present in stores, restaurants, hospitals, schools, throughout American society. The following week, he announced the creation of the Johnson Institute for Equity and Respect, a non-profit organization dedicated to promoting inclusive practices in companies across all sectors. The institute would offer consulting, training, certifications, and awards for organizations committed to transforming their internal cultures. The inauguration of the institute was a grand event, with the presence of business leaders, politicians, artists, and social activists. But the guest of honor was Mrs. Thompson, the elderly lady who had witnessed the original incident and now at 85 continued to act as an honorary consultant to the Equality and Respect Committee. Mrs. Thompson is living proof that it's never too late to change, never too late to be treated with dignity, Marcus said in his opening speech. She reminds us that behind every number, every account, every transaction, there is a human being with dreams, fears, hopes, and it is this humanity that we must honor in everything we do. The lady, leaning on her cane, walked slowly to the microphone. "I've lived almost a century in this country," she said with a weak but firm voice. "I've seen many changes, good and bad. But what Marcus Johnson has done in recent years was one of the most beautiful transformations I've witnessed. He showed that respect and dignity are not luxuries. They are rights, and that when we treat people as human beings, not as numbers or appearances, everyone wins." The audience rose in an emotional ovation. Marcus, with tears in his eyes, embraced the lady affectionately. At the cocktail reception after the ceremony, Greg Mitchell approached Marcus with a serious expression. "Mr. Johnson, we need to talk about an important matter." "Certainly, Mr. Mitchell." "Any problem at the branch?" "No, it's not that. It's about the future of the program. I've been thinking a lot and I believe we need to expand the focus. It's not enough to treat current customers well. We need to reach those who have never set foot in a bank out of fear or lack of opportunity." Marcus smiled, surprised and pleased with Greg's initiative. "I'm listening." "We've developed a pilot project in the community, banking agents who go to the people instead of waiting for them to come to us. Young people from the community itself, trained to explain basic financial concepts and help with access to services. A kind of mobile bank." "Exactly. With simple technology, tablets and portable printers. We can open accounts, carry out basic operations, all in people's homes or at community points." "That's brilliant, Greg. Exactly the kind of innovation we need. When can we implement it?" "The pilot project has already been running for a month, in partnership with the Residents Association. The results are promising." Marcus looked at the man before him, amazed at the transformation. Was this the same Greg who, years earlier, had treated him with contempt? Incredible how people could change when given the opportunity. "Mr. Mitchell, I want you to present this project at the next board meeting, and I want you to lead its national implementation yourself." Greg's eyes shone. "It would be an honor, Mr. Johnson." 5 years after the incident that transformed National American Bank, Marcus was in his office when he received an unexpected call. "Mr. Johnson, this is Robert Williams, President of the American Banking Association. I would like to invite you to receive the Banking Transformation Award this year. Your leadership has revolutionized not just your bank, but the entire sector." Marcus was surprised. The American Banking Association was traditionally conservative, resistant to change. "I appreciate the recognition, Mr. Williams, but I would like the award to be presented not just to me, but to all who made this transformation possible. Lisa Santos, Greg Mitchell, Mrs. Thompson, and so many others." "That's unusual, but we can arrange something special. The important thing is to recognize the positive impact your work has had on the American financial sector." At the award ceremony, in a luxurious hotel in New York, the American banking sector paid tribute not just to Marcus, but to the entire team that had made the revolution in banking service possible. Lisa, now Vice President of Human Resources at the bank, spoke about the importance of valuing employees who have the courage to report discriminatory practices. Greg shared his personal journey of transformation, moving the audience with his honesty. Mrs. Thompson received a special tribute as a symbol of resistance and dignity. When it was his turn to speak, Marcus was emotional. 5 years ago, I walked into a bank branch wearing simple clothes, wanting to see how ordinary people were treated. What I witnessed was painful, but also revealing. I realized that the problem wasn't individual but systemic, and that to change it we would need courage, persistence, and above all, empathy. He paused, looking at the attentive faces in the audience. What we did wasn't revolutionary, it was simply human. We reminded all of us that behind each transaction, each account, each number, there is a person with dreams, fears, and hopes. And that our job, in essence, is to serve these people, all of them, not just those who dress well or have fat accounts. Enthusiastic applause interrupted his speech. When silence returned, he continued, "True success isn't measured just by the numbers on a balance sheet, but by the positive impact we have on people's lives. And this is a lesson that applies not just to banks, but to all companies, institutions, and in fact, to each of us as individuals." At the end of the ceremony, several presidents of other banks sought out Marcus, interested in implementing similar programs in their institutions. The domino effect he had so hoped for was finally beginning to happen. On the way back to the hotel, Marcus received a message from his mother. "My son, your father would be so proud today." He smiled, moved. His father, a simple bus driver who had faced prejudice his entire life, always said that one day things would change. And now, thanks in part to the son he had raised with so much love and dignity, that change was happening. Upon arriving at the hotel, Marcus decided to get off at the main entrance instead of using the VIP access. He wore a simple suit, no tie, far from the luxurious standard of the other executives at the award ceremony. The doorman looked at him with indifference, while enthusiastically opening the door for an elegant couple arriving in a limousine. Something still needed to change, Marcus thought, but every small step counted. And he would continue his mission, one day at a time, one person at a time, until respect and dignity became the norm, not the exception. The next day, he gathered his team to present the next challenge, expanding the humanized service model to other sectors, starting with retail, hospitality, and healthcare. The silent revolution was just beginning. "It's not just about business," Marcus concluded to his team. "It's about building a more just country, where each person is valued for who they are, not for what they possess. And in this journey, each of us has a fundamental role." And so the story of Marcus Johnson continued, inspiring people across the United States to believe that yes, change is possible, that prejudices can be overcome, that a more just and equal world is not just a distant dream, but a reality that we can build together, one gesture of respect at a time. End of story. So, what did you think of this transformation story? Were you moved by Marcus's journey and the impact he caused? Leave your comment and tell us how you would react in Greg's place. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories.